Shalom, shalom, I'm Rabbi Yehuda, and today I'd like to talk to you about the Talmud. For many of you out there who don't know what Talmud is an embodiment of works. Actually, it's a voluminous work that was finished and completed around the 5th century CE. It actually discussed what is called oral law. The oral law is known as Torah shebe'al peh, meaning it is the Torah that was given by mouth. All right? So, for a lot of you out there, you're like, what is Torah that's given by mouth? I mean, when you think about it, Torah, before it was written, it was given by mouth. It was given by the mouth of the Most High. But in this context, because context means everything, in this context, it means that it is the Torah that was passed down by the judges of Israel. You see, in the Torah, you have to understand that the Most High gave the commandments to the judges of Israel to come up with law whenever the Torah commandments were not explicit enough. And we saw this during the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, that people argued and they debated the commandments. And even during Moshe's time, he had to quell many of the issues when it came down to commandments. Now, if this happened during Moshe Rabbeinu's time, you can imagine what happens afterward. Eventually, the high court was called the Sanhedrin. The great Sanhedrin were the judges of Israel, or the elders, that quell these issues. These elders later were called rabbis. And we see by the second temple period, about 2,000 years ago, and a little prior, the great Sanhedrin at that time, or the course of Ezra, these great men, these great judges, were called rabbis. Now, please don't get confused with those who are called rabbis today. These people actually had an authentic form of smicha, or smukim, which is plural for smicha. They actually were successors from the time of Moshe and from Yehoshua ben Nun, and you see was posted by the Mishnah Torah all the way down to we had the last court, the last rabbi, the true rabbis. What we have as rabbis today are called hediotos, which are common people who have a certain knowledge base, understanding, or should have a basic understanding of Torah and the Halakha to help guide people in the path of Torah and to serving Hashem. So today's rabbis, including myself, are what's called a pseudo smicha. All right. So even the greatest rabbis that we see, who are of high caliber, that people regard as high caliber. Some even have created the term Gadol Hador, means the great one of the generation. All right, these people today are clergymen in the best and basic sense that I can give to you. They do not have the smicha, all right, and they are not authorized to make new laws. So, whereas the judges of Israel were authorized by the Most High and Moshe Rabbeinu to make laws. Now, they didn't make laws or create laws in addition to the Torah. In other words, they didn't add to the Torah. They created what's we call rabbinical laws or judicial laws. They were laws that Moshe said we must carry. We should not go to the right or to the left of their judgment. And their ruling were so serious, or it is so serious, because we still have their rulings, which we call halacha, which I will explain later. But their rulings are so serious that the Most High even said is tantamount to the death penalty if we do not follow their rulings. And this is the reason why their rulings are called rabbinical rulings. So many people may object to some of the rulings that were given in the Sanhedrin about how to follow the Torah, and by saying, hey, they added to the Torah. And many of these objections are actually from misunderstandings. It's based on a type of ignorance. You know, there's an old saying, context means everything. If you don't have the context of what they're saying, it's like going to a law library, or a library of law, I should say, and going and pulling out an excerpt from case law and trying to build a whole case from that excerpt is impossible. Therefore, in order to understand Talmud and what it embodies, all right, you have to understand the context and the whole premise behind what is being discussed. So if I heard things being said like, oh, they said it's okay for a Jew to kill a Gentile and then they'll require the death penalty. You have to understand the context behind these objections. And we will be covering these objections of the Talmud. So I guess this is going to be a series from this point on. So what are these laws called? We call it halakha. The reason why they call it halakha comes from the word holech. Holech means walk, literally walking. And so it's a euphemism of one taking the path of Torah or executing Torah whenever it is what? Ambiguous. So just like the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, there were many things that were said that were ambiguous that were passed down orally. The reason why we know this, because if you read the Torah, where he said he settled these cases, look as you may to your own exhaustion, and you will not find it written in Torah. They were passed down orally. And then later on in time, by the time we get to the Second Temple, and Israel was in danger of being dispersed throughout the four corners of the earth, which history already has shown us, all right? The sages, the judges of Israel, the wise men of Israel, the Hachamim, decided that we must write these things down. So the Mishnah was created, and the Mishnah was done around the time the so-called Gospels were finally put into writing. That's how old the Mishnah is. Around the 3rd century CE, which is about the year 260 some odd, the Mishnah was completed. And that was the oral law that was passed down. The Talmud in Babel, which is Babylon or Iraq, was finally completed, which is the embodiment of the Mishnah and the legends and the exegesis of scriptures and even traditions, minhagim, were all embodied and finished and completed by the 5th century CE. That's the reason why it's called the Babylon Talmud. I've heard some people say, oh, it was the Babylon Talmud because we were expelled in Babylon, that the Talmud existed there. No, the Talmud did not exist. Yes, oral law did, but the Talmud didn't. All right? The Talmud is the embodiment. It's a voluminous work that covers the many subjects of the Mishnah or the oral law. So, the oral law is an ancient text when it's finally written or anthologized and completed by the 3rd century CE. It was the ruling of Israel of the religious court, the Great Sanhedrin, 2,000 years ago. It was not created by Edomites. As a matter of fact, the judges of Israel were so meticulous and they were so careful that when it came down to naming all of the judges of Israel, all the way from the time of Moses, and the last part, when this dismantlement of the Sanhedrin came to be, they were very careful to let us know who were all Israelites and how many of those great court rulers were actually converts. And believe it or not, you can count on one hand how many converts were the heads of the Sanhedrin court. The truth about the Talmud, that it embodies the oral law, the path that we ought to take in executing Torah. It is a heaven mandate. It is commanded by the Most High himself that we must follow the oral law. Now, as far as these other objections, I would be glad to take them. You can write some of your objections down below in your comments, and then we will tackle those objections of Talmud that you may have and put them in perspective. And so, with the help of Hashem, we will make this a series. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it educational. And I hope you find it thought-provoking, and that you will begin your study as we move on in the next series of the Talmud. I'm Rabbi Yehuda, and I bid you all a shalom uvracha. If you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button and hit the notification button below, and then you will be notified when we come out with our next series on the Talmud. Shalom, shalom. Shine. Shalom, shalom, Rabbi Yehuda. Thank you for visiting us here on the West African Jews of the Diaspora channel here on YouTube, or visiting us at our Facebook page. Here we're going to discuss a lie, one of the biggest lies, grotesque lies ever made against the children of Israel, aka the Jewish people. And that is that the Talmud teaches that it's okay to rape 3-year-olds or below with impunity. And I can understand why those who have accepted this lie believe that the Talmud is from the devil or satanic, or some of the things that I've heard said about the Talmud that are cruel. And these are derogatory statements. But before I would continue, I would like to start off by giving an analogy that's mentioned in the Torah. In the Torah, it teaches that in one passage, it says that if a man rapes a woman, he must marry that woman. And so someone can look at this and see, this is of the devil. This is wicked. Chas v'shalom, heaven forbid. And that is the problem. Now, anybody that reads the Torah, that understands the Torah, understands that it's a moral and ethical book. It is divine. It comes from the words of the Creator himself. And therefore, anybody who would say that passage means that, and you understand that this is from the Hakadosh Baruch Hu, this is from the Holy One, blessed be He, you would say, no, it doesn't mean that. And the same thing goes for what is stated in Talmud. Now, I know some of you out there going, the Talmud is not the same as the Torah. Listen, when the Talmud has its discussion on what is due to a person in justice and in equity and in moral and ethics, it is based off of Torah. In Deuteronomy, the 17th chapter, the 8th through the 13th verses, we see the establishment of the judges of Israel who give their rulings on issues and matters of Torah decrees. In the Talmud, when you see this discussion, this is talking about those decrees, and those decrees are called halakha. Now, if you did not watch the video called The Truth About Talmud, please watch that, because that will give you more information based on what I'm telling you now. And for many of you out there that said, oh, the Talmud was created by the white Jews. These are the wicked people. These are people who are sitting synagogues of Satan. The Talmud was created before there was a white Jew. Again, watch my video.
Here is the translation. Rabbah said that this is what the Mishnah is saying. An adult man who engaged in intercourse with a minor girl less than 3 years old has done nothing, as intercourse with a girl less than 3 years old is almost like poking a finger into the eye. Here is the context of the passage. The man has done nothing means that the status of the young girl will remain a virgin. Hence, just as an eye has been poked, so too her hymen shall heal.
This particular passage is talking about the damage of a girl 3 years or younger because of something that many of us do not practice today. It's called dowry. See, there was two parts of a marriage in ancient times. The dowry part, which is erusin part, the part where there was a contract made for the marriage with a dowry, and then the nisuin. The nisuin is the part where many of us are familiar with the wedding ceremony. All right? But because a lot of us do not participate in the erusin, the part of the dowry part of the marriage, this escapes you when you read this part. It is saying that a girl that's been violated and loses her hymen at 3 years or younger would not have any concern of her value as a virgin because her hymen grows back. That is what it's saying. That's the simple breakdown. Now here is the proof. The Talmud in other parts talks about the criminality. What happens to the individual that has assailed or victimized a 3-year-old or younger, or any minor for that matter. In one passage it says that molestation
It's strictly forbidden. You do not molest or fondle or any sort of way of a minor child, no matter if it's a girl or boy. So we know the criminality for such an act can be up to the death penalty, not just lashing, public lashings and embarrassment and ostracizing the individual for what they've done, but they can receive the death penalty depending on whom they have raped. So if you want to continue to follow these lies that are created by these racist white supremacists who will not consider any of you who are classified as non-white people any justice and have made lies about you and your history, if you want to continue to follow them in their lies, you are participating with those who indeed follow after injustice, and their concepts and their practices are demonic and satanic. But here it is. I gave you the facts. You can look at them, examine them, and then you can tell all of those people who follow these lies how mistaken they are and how they need to look at information from a different perspective. Critiquing information is very important because we're taught in the Torah and we're taught in the Tanakh, which is the Hebrew Bible, that the evil tongue, Lashon Hara, and Mosi Simra, libel, is forbidden. Anyway, I'm Rabbi Yehuda. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that it was a blessing to you. And if you have any questions, if you have any comments, and if you would like for us to post videos on other subject matters, we'd be glad to do that. Again, I'm Rabbi Yehuda. Please hit the subscribe button, the notification button below. Shalom Uvracha.
Shalom, I'm Rabbi Yehuda. Thank you for visiting us here at the West African Jews of the Diaspora channel here on YouTube. And we have another interesting topic for you. Is the Talmud racist? Is it truly anti-black? Now, I guess you guys already know, based on my complexion, based on what I've been classified here in these good old US of A, as a black person, there's no way being oppressed, being ridiculed, being discriminated because of my complexion, that I would subscribe to any document, whether it is just one piece of paper or a voluminous work that pushes and promotes racism, white supremacy. So you already got the gist of that, but you deserve an explanation, and I'm here to give you that. It is unfortunate that if you go on Google and you go on the internet, you will find many statements. You can find all kinds of information, of course, right? But amongst them, you'll find all of these disparaging reports about the Talmud, including that it is racist. And it's all about this one central figure in the Torah, and that is none other than Ham. Ham was one of the three sons of Noah. And we know the legend that Noah, or we know the story in the Torah, that Noah had three sons, Shem, Yafet, and Ham has been crowned as the father of black people.
But history and science shows otherwise. And the Torah is in accordance with history and science. And so is the Talmud in this regard. Because the Torah never said Ham was the father of black people. However, there is a story that Ham was cursed with blackness. And many people flat out say it. It's found in the Talmud. But let me give you the backdrop. The backdrop comes from an Agadah. What is an Agadah? That's a tongue twister, right? An Agadah. An Agadah is a term for legend. And in Judaism, legends, whether they're given by the sages of Israel or any other Torah master for that matter, are not to be taken literally. And they're certainly, and many times over, should not be taken as historical or scientific fact. Rambam mentions this in his Moreh Nevuchim, and he also states this in the Mishnah Torah. So we find that an Agadah can be accepted or rejected, and it doesn't affect one's status of observance of Torah. With that being said, now let's go into the Agadah. The Agadah states that when Noah gathered all the animals and all the people into the ark, he made a ruling, and that ruling is no one should be in the act of procreation. Not any of his children, not himself, not any of the animals. And I'm sure there were partitions made to ensure this. However, somehow, according to the Agadah, 3 managed to break this decree. That is the raven, the dog, and Ham. Furthermore, it teaches in this legend that Ham copulates with a dog, and because of it, he is smitten with a skin disease. And that's what the Talmud teaches. That's it. Nothing more, nothing further. He was smitten with a skin disease. And any one of you who are people who read the Torah, who read the Hebrew Bible, some of you Christians might call the Old Testament, when you see skin disease and cursing with skin diseases, what disease do you think of? What comes to your mind? Bingo. Someone out there said it. Leprosy. So when the Talmud leaves it ambiguous like that, it never said that Ham was cursed with blackness. It said he was cursed with a skin disease. Somebody else decided that whatever that skin disease was blackness. And that person and that particular record or that legend is not found in Talmud. So there you have it. The Talmud never said anything like that. But there's another legend written by a rabbi. His name is Rabbi Eliezer ben Hirkanus in his Pirkei de Eliezer, and he talks about blackness. And he goes and he mentions Noah's children as well. And when he mentions Noah's children, he mentions Ham as well. And what does he say? He says that Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Japheth, and Ham. And guess what? He said Ham and Shem were blessed with blackness. Isn't that a contradiction to whatever source that says Ham was cursed with blackness? The legends that's proposed by 2 sages, one says Ham was cursed with skin disease and left it there in Talmud, and then in the Pirkei de Eliezer it says Ham and Shem were both blessed, and then they were black, and therefore Shem was blessed. He wasn't cursed with blackness. Ham was blessed. He wasn't cursed with blackness. I'm Rabbi Yehuda. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for coming. Don't forget to hit the subscription button and the notification button below if you love this video, and share it with everyone that you know, especially those people who really believe in such nonsense that the Talmud teaches racism or anti-blackness. Thank you again for watching. Shalom Ufaraka.